Allow me to introduce Illumin's own Chief Strategy Officer and journey advertising expert, Seraj Bharwani, who will be moderating our session today. Seraj, go ahead when you're ready.
And see what today's discussion is predominantly about, as you have already known. We are the players in what we call journey advertising. Um, the term journeys, whether it's customer journeys and so forth, or journey marketing, has been in the marketing parlance for over a decade, but has been more of a theoretical construct and only limited to very specific contexts within which it is practiced. Today, we're going to talk about the more broader perspective on how this can actually be actioned, and you can learn insights from it and really make your marketing and raise the bar on how you really get the insights out of it. So let's jump right in. What is it? So why do we need journey advertising? Lindsay, keep going. It all starts with the questions that your prospective customers, current customers, consumers broadly who might be interested in your brand have on their minds. Clearly, people have needs, and those needs associated with that have a lot of questions, which is, in this particular case, illustratively speaking, is a couple, a family that's exploring options for travel. They want to take a vacation, probably for a week or so, want to check out a few places, want to know which are the good places for families to visit together, you know, how and what some of the ways in which they would be traveling. Should they go somewhere close by on a driving range versus other things that might be requiring flight, and other ways of getting there? Will there be the right activities? Will they be child friendly? Where would they stay? Will it be affordable? All of those things. Will it be easily accessible? Will the service be useful, relevant in the ways they want to enjoy, where they want to go, the kinds of things they want to do? All of those things. It's just keeps going on and on. And they have their own ways of getting the answers to these questions, which is essentially what we refer to as the consumer's own journey. It's a mind state. They're going through the process to figure out something that they want to do, which they might get that information from a variety of different places, some accessible to marketers, others not. So, for example, they might be watching videos on popular destinations, they might be reading articles about places with family activities to be done, hotels and interesting, venues where they would love to go and visit. All of the things they want to do before they might end up really booking the travel, right? This is the consumer journey. They will decide what they want to do. The fact of the matter, though, is if you look at it from a marketer's perspective, they can try and be as top of mind as they could be by running a lot of advertising and building awareness out there in the key target areas, regions where they believe people might be interested in traveling and taking vacations and so forth. And by the time they end up thinking about a particular destination and hotels within those regions and so forth, they're almost there. They've made up their mind, right? The problem is right in the middle, though. There are so many alternatives to look at, things to think about that could get in the way of making the decision, which is what is the process of the evaluation, exploration, which researchers who've actually done research in the past, some funded by Google, others outside, suggest that that is the most messy end of the journey. They refer to that explicitly as a messy middle. Unless the marketer is there to guide the user through that gap in the middle, one of two things will happen. One is the decision making will be delayed or will never be made if people simply don't get the questions answered, and so there's just that indecision that happens, right? Okay, so how should marketers and what are the things they should be thinking about? Clearly, it all makes sense that you should be there when the consumers are, guide them when they need it, in all the relevant ways without clearly annoying them and chasing them and so forth. You want to be available when they need you. The problem, though, is there are many things you need to know and do it in the right way. So, for example, do you know who you are reaching, first of all? Do you have some degree of identity of the user as being interested or looking for, and so forth, right? Others are what is on their minds right now? What's the context in which they are thinking about this? Do they have content that is easily accessible? Is it being provided in some orchestrated way so it's clearly guiding them to what they really need now to make the choices? And for the marketer, it's more about, am I investing the money in all the right ways that is directly attributable to the decisions consumers make, which is there a clear ROI? That's a lot to unpack, right? That's quite a few things for the marketers to figure out. And that's essentially what we at Illumin have been thinking about for the past many years, at least 5. And with that, I'd love to bring Mike Stanczak to the stage and for us to see what is it that Illumin has been developing and a platform that's actually being used to really address those challenges that I just described. Mike, welcome. Um, please show what, and first introduce yourself
Yeah,
and share this with our audience as to what is it that we have in the works.
I'd love to. And thank you, Seraj. It's great to be here presenting with you and Dan upcoming. I'm so excited to hear your conversation with Dan. But I'm also incredibly excited to share what our current vision of the customer journey looks like in the Illumin platform for all of our audiences here today on the webinar. I'm also going to briefly touch on our upcoming integrations and roadmap. So that should be very exciting for everyone as well. So without a further ado, let's jump into the platform. Just give me 1 minute here to share my screen. And Seraj, could you just give me a verbal?
Yes.
See everything?
I can see it. Yes.
Fantastic. So to address all the elements that Seraj was talking about related to the customer journey, all the questions that need to be answered, all the potential touch points within that journey from awareness to engagement and conversion, we've built Illumin. Illumin is a first to market journey advertising platform that's designed to replicate the whiteboard. It's designed to show all the different stages of the funnel, whether that be awareness, engagement, and conversion, and allow a marketer to seamlessly plan a campaign from start to finish across these different stages of the journey with different creative assets, such as display, video, audio, native, connected TV, and stitching all these elements together in a single sequence to be able to handle that journey for our clients. So I'm going to actually build some live examples for everyone on the webinar today. We'll show off a brief demo build of what a full funnel journey looks like. And then also we're going to look at some insights that go along with building a funnel within Illumin. So let's begin. So we have our canvas right here. We're going to start by creating a path. So this is a drag and drop system. It's the first drag and drop media buying canvas that has been built. And it's really streamlined the approach of building campaigns for our clients. We believe that marketers and brands think in journeys. We believe that they think in stories, in sequences. They start with audiences first. So that's the way that Illumin works. So once we drag an audience onto the canvas, you'll see it populate right here. We're going to fill it in later with some examples. But from here, we can now map different creative assets to that audience so that these creatives are now mapped to this specific audience. And from there, we utilize what's called a condition. Now, as we move a user through the journey, we need to control how many times they see their creative. We don't want to over target and utilize over frequency. So we can control that as we move through the funnel. Now, if we take our video asset, we would drag a video view on that, take another video asset and drag a video view on that. And for display, we're going to use a impression. Now, once we've connected these to the end of the path, we've built the basic, awareness campaign for the what we're building right here. Now, when we want to add in creatives and audiences, those are easily mapped via our toolbox on the left-hand side. So once we have our videos uploaded, you can see how easy it is to build a campaign within Illumin. All the creative elements can be dragged onto the canvas and will now populate in their respective creative asset place. Now, from an audience perspective, we can build unique personas, we can utilize first-party data, third-party data. It's as easy as just dragging those audiences onto their respective element within the path. And there you have it, right there. I've built a semi-basic awareness campaign that could be activated just by hitting this publish button up here on the right. Now, this is only one stage of the consumer journey, though. We've got our video assets, we've got an upper funnel display asset, but from here, what happens when we want to move to the next stage of the journey, where we may have different creatives, different audiences, different rules, different conditions? Just like Seraj was mentioning, this is where different questions are being asked, and ideally, it's us being able to answer those questions with elements of the platform. So now we can take all the audiences that have completed our condition steps, and we can transition those audiences seamlessly to the next stage of the journey. And from here, we maybe want to test an audio creative or a native creative. So you can build complex decision trees, allowing the AI to route users through this journey as you see fit, based on all the tactics and conditions that you've put into the platform. So I'm not going to go through the entire build for you. That's something for a later date, but just wanting to show you how easy the tool is to use and some of the basic functionality of the canvas. Now, if we jump into a more built out example, you'll see this full journey activation come to life. So if we zoom in a little bit, we'll see the example that I built prior, showing you the awareness campaign. But what we also have is a consideration-based engagement campaign here in the mid-funnel that utilizes different creative tactics. We may even have different audiences that we want to start here, because not all audiences are a good fit for awareness. So as part of that customer journey, you can within Illumin, you can pick and choose where you want an audience to start. You could even take a singular audience and start an audience directly onto a creative asset. If you knew that that audience was a good fit for that creative, you could start that audience right there. And from here, our condition to move through, it may not be a view condition, but it could be a click, or it could be a site engagement. So the conditions change for users as they move through that journey. Ultimately, we're trying to get a user to the bottom of the funnel in this scenario. So we have two very focused creatives trying to generate conversions, leads, focused on a CPA or an ROAS. And that's really the power of Illumin, is that we can connect all these, what are traditionally siloed campaigns, together and have one single system be routing a user through from all three stages. Now, some exciting things you'll notice down here at the bottom are digital out of home and our new integration with Meta. Now, these can be planned right alongside your open web customer journey, and they're incredibly powerful because it allows you to not only activate right alongside in the same canvas, but it also allows you to report in the exact same interface as well within our reporting suite. And these are integrations that we're incredibly proud of. It's taken us, this has been a great year for us. We have a long roadmap of integrations from here on out, and really just being able to further expand what we believe the consumer journey is, because it's more than just video, display, audio, native, connected TV. The amount of touch points that exist for the customer journey are expansive. And our mission is to have as many of those within the Illumin canvas for our clients and advertisers as possible.
Mike,
yes,
this is great, right? I mean, the baseline is truly impressive in how much control with truly an intuitive experience, right? We're all obviously very proud of it. I think it's very important for you to emphasize one more thing, if you don't mind.
I'd love to.
Most of the way you described it was truly bringing net new prospects through the journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about the connection to, let's say, an advertiser has a CDP, for example, right? And they have first party data over there. How might they be able to leverage that within this whole journey for their current customer base?
Absolutely. That's a great question, Seraj. So once connected to the CDP, that unlocks an entirely new set of possibilities within Illumin. And because you could think of this as an audience control center for addressable media, let's say that I have Illumin connected to whatever my client CDP of choice is. All of those first party signals that a brand has already curated on the first party side can be onboarded into Illumin. And then at any of these audience circles, as well as any of the creative elements, I could actually go in and I could apply that audience to the awareness stage. But let's say, Seraj, that this is our CRM file, right? We've got a very robust CRM file we're uploading. This is a current known client. Maybe they've lapsed. They haven't spent anything for 3 to 6 months, but they know who we are. So in that scenario, does that client need to see an awareness message? And I would argue the answer is no. So what you can do within Illumin is upload that CRM audience to the awareness stage. And instead of allowing that audience, we're going to suppress that audience. And we could say, furthermore, let's start that audience here at the mid part of the funnel, knowing that we're just trying to get them over the hump with a consideration message and push them through to converting.
Perfectly. This applies clearly for any type of upsell and cross-sell, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like many clients actually have, exhaustive bundles, insurance. You're already a subscriber to the auto insurance. Why can't we sell you on home equity, right? And home insurance and things like that. Classic, right? For Progressive and things like that we've looked at before. That use case that you just described applies precisely here the same way, right? Did I get that right?
You did.
Okay, excellent.
Great. So one more feature just on the audience front that I'll call out, Seraj, because you brought it up. Knowing how big, how big of a focus audiences are for brands today, and obviously, agencies that plan on behalf of brands, we've built in a feature that we call Audience Out. Meaning that, let's say I have that CRM segment uploaded here in the mid funnel, and they're going to start their journey right here. What if I could save an audience that's actually engaged with one of these specific creatives based on their behavior? So this is basically dynamic segmentation and creation of those audiences to say that users who've clicked on this specific creative, I can start to pool that audience and use them for a later date. So this creates an entirely new subset of audiences that brands can use based on their behavior within the journey here in Illumin. Excellent. So that's the front end of Illumin. Wanted to show you the canvas and show you what an example of a journey looks like, as well as some new integrations that we have. Now, once we have this all ready to go, we can hit publish, and then we jump over and we can look at some of the insights that you can get with it. So we'll move over to the insights portion to run through some of these elements.
I think on that particular topic, Mike, that publish is a fairly sophisticated activation that you might want to elaborate just a little bit in terms of what's the inventory we're talking about here? What choices and options do clients and agencies have?
Absolutely, yeah. So the minute you hit publish and this goes live, this activates across tens of thousands of direct publishers, deal IDs, PMPs, pretty much every inventory source known to man across the addressable ecosystem.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
I think that's very important, right? Because people are becoming very nuanced these days. Advertisers are in their choice and selection, being brand appropriate, and a variety of other expectations that they have for safety and so forth, right?
Absolutely. And there's controls within the tool as well. So if we were to dig into the tool and look at specific targeting options for inventory, you can apply any sort of stringent limitations of where you want it to run, specific deals, brand safety settings as well. So all of that is available at a bulk level for the entire journey, or you can update it at the individual tactic level.
Oh, perfect. Let's go on to insights, please.
Yeah, let's do it. So once we hit publish and this all goes live, now, the best part about Illumin is that because we're focused on the journey, we should have insights that are aligned with that journey. So we've built some very unique visualizations within the platform that are updated every 60 seconds. So as a marketer, when you're using this type of technology, you can go in and see exactly in real time where users are in that funnel and see all the appropriate metrics that are aligned with that. So the first report we have to show you is our Journey Audience Analytics report. So from here, we can see in real time how many users are currently sitting in each stage of the journey, but also know how many users are active right now in that stage, how many have completed that stage and are ready for the next stage, and how many have actually just completed it right there. They've done the action we want them to do. Or we could also see how many impressions, clicks, and conversions are being achieved at every single stage of the funnel, as well as our goal for each stage. Now, ultimately, what we can help a marketer understand is, in setting up a full journey, how much time does it take to move through each stage? What's the average amount of touch points it takes to move from stage to stage? What is the cost to move a user from awareness to engagement, from engagement to conversion, and ultimately getting that user to convert? So these are a new set of metrics that are more aligned with the journey. And at the end of the day, what a brand can uncover is how much time that it takes in total to move through the journey, and what is the total amount of touch points, knowing that we may want to try and compress that journey, or in certain cases, we could need to lengthen that journey if we're not getting the result that we want. Maybe we need more upper stage awareness. Maybe we need more mid-funnel engagement to get that conversion downstream. So this is all updated and refreshed in the system every 60 seconds. So we can also show a brand how much of their media is running across each different of these channels in each stage in real time. So if a client wanted to know, how is my upper funnel audio performing versus my display, they could see that instantaneously. They could make decisions to see how is each different stage performing, and then immediately go back into the journey canvas and make a very quick change, republish, and that's going to go live. We've also built a segment distribution map. Now with this, and we talked a little bit about audiences before, but if we expand upon this report, what we can see is that every single audience may not need to be targeted to each different stage. There may be certain audiences that are a better fit for awareness, certain audiences that are a better fit for engagement, and certain audiences, obviously, that are a better fit for conversion. Or we may want to target a singular audience all the way through. What this insight report allows us to do is really dig in and see, how is one specific audience moving through that funnel? Are they more likely to convert if they've received more messaging throughout the journey? And then ultimately, what changes do we want to make to those audiences based on how does that audience ladder up to the ultimate goal that you have for that stage of the journey, whether it be a CPA, a CPC, awareness goal, etc. So this is a very unique insight report. Now, the last report, and personally my favorite to run through,
So
is
hold
our
that
audience.
on that,
Oh,
hold
yeah.
that thought on that for just a second, because
Sure.
clearly there's a lot of profound and incremental insights that you talked about that are much more focused on the journey in totality, which is very hard to get elsewhere if the platform isn't really set up that way, right?
Mhm.
You know, many clients actually use their own internal systems like Tableau and other different, things where they bring in data from a lot of different sources, analyze it in their own way. How might they be able to take some of this really interesting data and bring it in? What options do they have?
Yes, so we have a fully functioning API so that any reporting metric within illumin can be ported via API to any visualization software a client has, whether that be Tableau, whether that be Google Data Studio. We have a fully functioning API that can push literally every single data point that we have. And what that does is that it allows you to take some of these very unique insights and marry them with the data that you're already looking at, because we know that obviously there weren't potentially other campaigns running. There's certain things that are running in different platforms, and clients want to look at that in totality. But we have the ability to share that data from illumin directly with those visualization platforms.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah.
It's a great question.
Keep going. Yeah.
So when we look at the visualization of the journey, we've actually built an amazing feature within illumin called our audience engagement map. Now, what this is designed to do, it's designed to look exactly the same as the journey built in the canvas. The key here is that if we zoom in a little bit, make sure everyone can see it. If we zoom in a little bit here, what we can see is that this report now has the journey that you've built, all the touch points, but it now has all live data populating in it. So no longer is a client need to do hours and hours and hours of spreadsheet engineering to build something like this. Again, this is refreshed every 60 seconds in our system. And what you can look at is how many users have started the path that you've built, how many have been exposed to each creative, and how many are currently sitting in this bucket. So basically, before they've seen it 3 times, this is the amount of users that are sitting here. But we can also tell you something very key, which is at every creative tactic, what's happening? How many impressions, clicks, and conversions am I getting in that moment in time? Regardless of if my goal of that stage was a conversion, they do happen. And because we've connected it all together, we can show you that. Now, as users are completing our condition steps, they're going to move to the engagement stage of the funnel, where remember, our goals have changed. So instead of a view-based awareness condition, we may have a click, or we may have a site engagement as well. You can have multiple conditions be the reason a user moves through the journey. And from there, obviously focused on the bottom part of the funnel, trying to get a user to convert. In this case, sign up for an Illumin demo. So this gives you a visual look at the entire campaign, knowing that it could be display, video, audio, native, connected TV, digital out of home, social. All of those components can be included in this audience engagement map. So on its surface, what you're looking at is something that is incredibly revolutionary and saves our clients a ton of time. Now, taking it a step further, though, let's think about this. We've got an awareness campaign, an engagement campaign, and a low funnel conversion based campaign. The goal for the awareness campaign was a video completion rate, an audio completion rate. The goal for our mid funnel campaign was a cost per click, and the goal here was a CPA. But obviously, what we want, if this is an Illumin example, we want people signing up to see a demo of the platform. So what a client would ask is that, what is that best path through the funnel to get the most return here at the bottom? And that is called our pathlight analysis. So with 2 clicks, I'll engage the pathlight analysis and click most conversions. This uncovers for me the best path through the journey to yield the highest amount of conversions. This is where you optimize. This is where you focus your efforts. This helps our clients basically get to those nuggets of what they need from an optimization perspective faster than any other platform on the market.
This is very interesting, Mike, in the sense that, frequently we get questions asked and clients are asking agencies the same questions, right? Every month, every quarter, budgets are going all over the place, sometimes up, down, sideways. What are some of the things they can do to make best use of what you just showed here?
Absolutely, yeah. So when you look at this, a brand might say, "Well, I have to spend. Okay, I'm gonna pause everything else and only spend it on this path," and that's not what we would recommend typically, because that may kill your scale. This is really meant to be a blueprint of where you should think about focusing that money on to really impact in a very quick way your media campaign. Within the canvas, you can actually assign specific budgets to different creative channels and elements. So you can start to hard code once you've looked at the Pathlight report to tell you where to focus a majority of your spend, or as much as you can before you see that diminishing return. You can utilize it in that way. This report also just helps you figure out maybe where some of the noise is. If you were running, an audio campaign and an OLV campaign, and you found that CTV was doing the best, we may want to lower the frequency to these, maybe lower the budget slightly, but they're still valuable in helping us scale our campaign and get the message in front of new audiences. So this is really meant to be a blueprint. It's not meant to say that, cut everything you're doing and run along this path. In some cases, if a brand does have to cut a significant portion of their budget, that may be something they do. But more often than not, this is really meant to give you an idea of what you should do moving forward for the campaign.
Yeah, I think the term that marketers use many times is how to over-index or under-index.
Yeah.
In certain pathways. And I think this is a very nice way to say, you know what? Incremental funds allocated to what is the ideal pathway, which is the most productive, will improve your overall return on investment. That's the idea, right?
Perfectly said, Seraj.
Completely get it. This is very nicely done. Thank you
Great.
so much, Mike.
Yep. We'll send it back.
Anything you want to highlight? We have tons of questions. I'm sure audience does too. And I was thinking maybe we work with Dan on some of the questions that they have in terms of the adoption and so forth. And then potentially we'll have some questions coming up your way as well. Okay.
Great.
All right, excellent.
Yep.
Which
Fair.
brings us to the point of this is clearly a beautiful platform. And many times people are asking the questions, what are the clients really doing with it? You know, feature set is beautiful. There's a lot you can do. There's tremendous amount of possibilities here. Um, but what are some of the really interesting results that clients are able to get and make it actionable and make a difference for their business? So let me run through a couple of these and then we'll bring Dan on board. So Babor, great example of a brand that's actually based in Germany, global brand, and they came to the US, North America, because they wanted to expand their footprint, and they have a lot of relevant target audience that they actually can go to, and figure out how best they can actually grow the footprint. So they engaged the platform, and the CEO was very excited by looking at the platform, just the way Mike demonstrated. He did the same thing for the CEO of Babor, and he was like, "Wow, this is great! I want to use it." Um, and so these are some of the audiences they wanted to go after, people who are very interested in skincare and makeup, e-commerce shoppers, fashion enthusiasts, and so forth. Lots of good, nice attributes that they have, and personas that they actually wanted to target. And with all of the features that Mike talked about, we were able to really create those audiences for them and reach them at scale, but start with the proof of concept to really prove that this would actually work. So let's keep going. So here we are. For those of you who are familiar with personal care business in general, especially the makeup, skincare, all of that sort of stuff, 2/3 of the purchases actually are replenishment purchases, which is people who are familiar, used to it, like it, they know this is a good fit for me, will not look elsewhere. They'll just refill it and take the same thing. So then the question becomes like, what's the purpose of advertising to them? They're going to rebuy anyway. And so how do I grow the business? And like, how do I need to allocate the money? And it's like, you can't just completely hide from there. You still have to remain top of mind. So there's a balance to be achieved between current customers who are using it versus net new, which will truly help me grow my business and grow my market share. So for Babor, we created two distinct journeys. That is the journey for the existing customers who are aware of the brand, currently using it, and those who are new prospects, new to the brand. And therefore, as you can imagine, the journey will be longer, right? Because you're trying to reach them upfront, upstream, and get them exposed, get them excited, inspired about the brand and so forth, and then take them to the journey. So the left versus the right is what we allocated the budgets to. In the beginning, it was roughly equal across the board based on what the client instructed us to do. But what did we find? Let's show it. So interestingly, and not surprisingly, the return on ad spend was quite significant and significantly better than what was it for the new consumers, newly engaged and then converted, right? So you can see you've got almost 3x ROAS on the existing set who are being brought in to engage with potentially new items added to the portfolio. Innovation is constantly happening in personal care, as you guys know. And if you look at the right side, which is new consumers coming in, ROAS not so great. However, a very high percentage of those are in fact net new to the brand. And so the choice has to be made at that point by the CEO and now it's like, okay, where do we spend more money? And in this particular case, clearly because most of the growth is coming from the right side of the equation here, which is net new consumers, they wanted to over-index the investment on the right side. Clearly, some of the things that what journey platform like Illumin can actually allow you to do. You remember, right, what Mike actually said. Most of the time, it's all about where do you gradually allocate, over-index, make the right decisions to really influence and really drive the growth for the business, but do it with also balanced profitability. And that's the way decisions get made. Keep going. Here is further evidence of what really happens. Look at this thing. If you add one more on top of it, please. you will see for existing users, those who are familiar with the brand, they're buying it very quickly in the first few days. Look at that. The purchases of the people doing it first few days versus the whole long tail of new users who obviously have longer journey, takes a few more days, maybe even up to 2 and 3 weeks by the time they actually decide that this is the right brand for them, this is the right portfolio of things that they can actually use, that's a best fit for their skin texture or whatever. But you can see that there's quite a bit of revenue actually coming from the new users as well. So you obviously can't ignore that. And that's really where the net new growth is coming. So, all right, switch. One more example to show you. Travel is very popular. Obviously, we've had enough of COVID and everybody's out, right? We all want to go out there and explore just the way we used to. And so North Carolina decided that, you know, people do have a lot of choices, plenty of destinations they can go to for their vacations. Why not we put our message out there in the key markets from where we believe our audiences can be interested in coming in? So clearly North Carolina has a lot of interesting attractions of their own, but many of those are tourists who visited, who know the places, who've learned from others, friends, family, and others who've actually been there, and they'll go to the same old places, sort of the well-worn path, right? What North Carolina wanted to do was to introduce people to the new locations, the places that are less traveled, the sort of the backwoods, the mountains, the lakes, the places, you know, which you would not otherwise venture to go to. And the way they did it is introducing some nice, solid, interesting content, which was all about dreaming big, dream beyond what you would normally be inclined to do, showing them the experiences of it to learn more about it. And then on top of it, they introduce this incentive so you can enter into the sweepstakes, where you can win, frankly, a full expense paid vacation. What's there to not like? It's all beautiful, but how do you execute all of this thing? And so they decided to use illumin to do that. And you can see that they had multiple creatives at every stage of it, and it was all tested over time and so forth to really find what were the most efficient pathways for audiences coming from different feeder markets. So not every feeder market is the same, right, from where the audiences and tourists will actually come. And we learned a lot in the process. So keep going. Here it is. Look at all the East Coast markets all the way up to Texas that they were able to really test. We were able to find all the local geo markets where there was most attractive to come to North Carolina. And you can see, look, Florida, very attractive for them. People come in much larger numbers. And in this particular case, in people who are signing up, registering for the Dream Big sweepstakes, you can see the distribution across the different states as they were flowing through the journey, right? Very interesting, lots of learning. And then again, creative as well. They were most interested in learning is like, are there aspects of North Carolina that have better resonance with the audiences from the different markets? So if you look at the chart on the right, clearly people always love sweepstakes. Anything that you can get for free has always been popular, and that's been known for over 100 years, by the way. But what is most interesting is the other parts of it, the fact that people were gravitating to the mountains and the scenic views within sort of those backwoods areas of North Carolina. That's what really drew the attention. And I think it was very interesting for them to know how they could essentially create similar types of experiences and so forth to be entered within the journey that draws the attention from the people. And those sweepstakes, by the way, just so for those of you who are more curious, it was done in partnership with Airbnb, who has some amazingly beautiful properties in certain parts of North Carolina. So that actually was a nice co-promotion that went along, and it was really a nice, successful program for them. All right, so that was that. Just to give you an idea, really, I could keep going forever as far as case studies go, but I am sure the audience is thinking, okay, all of this sounds just way too good. What's the problem here? Dan, you're the one who is out and into the front lines out there, talking to the brands, talking to the agencies, discovering from the agencies, yeah, we got this or that, this comes in the way, these are the questions the brands are asking us, how do we address this and so forth. There is no better way and no better person to talk to than you. So let's go to you. What's getting in the way today? Are journeys easy to adopt? Are people just jumping and taking on, or are they still sort of questioning, how do I do this? How do I do that? Just curious.
Yeah, 100%, Suraj. Always great to be back on stage with you, and especially to be here and represent the voice of all the great clients that we talk to out in the field. As you know, our team is regularly meeting with marketing leaders from around the country and around the world, and carrying forward this message of journey advertising. And it's a really exciting thing. I mean, when you have brands like North Carolina and Babor that have seen the light, it becomes really obvious to them because they've seen it in action. But it takes a little while because it's a new concept to really help them see that light. And so what I wanted to share with you today are some of the common themes that we run into when we're bringing this conversation up. And I think the one that's first and foremost, and we've talked about it already a good bit here in this presentation. You've done a great job of highlighting it. But when we're talking to clients and showing them illumin for the first time, it's oftentimes a little bit confusing in the market around the differences between omni-channel, journeys, cross-channel, traditional programmatic, and how does this all really relate to what we're talking about, what you're calling journey advertising?
Yeah, so that is, it's so easy. There are so many messages out there. I think keeping the signal clear relative to your point, all the noise, is hard to do these days. So the first thing I would say is omni-channel means that you can buy media across a wide range of channels. Beautiful. It's great. It's very nice. More and more of the access points and channels are becoming addressable, which means they can be traded programmatically, more precisely targeted, and so forth. So clearly makes it far more attractive. And if an advertiser knows that their audiences are predominant in particular types of channels, say they are spending more time on TV and streaming, and whether it's video or audio or otherwise, they may want to spend more money there, and therefore they can buy more money and more media from there, which is all great. You can do that. The difference when it comes to journey advertising is the ability to connect the dots, not just for the consumer. It's important. We talked about that earlier. The consumer experience needs to be seamless. We all understand that, right? As it is, and media so fragmented, the marketers must be just as disciplined and organized in the way you present the consistent voice and a consistent messaging towards where they are trying to guide the consumer. So that's very important. That connectedness is critical from the consumer standpoint. But even think from the marketer's perspective. It's like, unless they do it the way Mike was emphasizing earlier, unless you connect the dots even for yourself, how do you know that certain aspects of your media is actually interrelated and is influencing downstream performance? You can't do that unless you really run programs that way and organize it that way. If you don't do it, the after effects of having a fragmented execution, one channel at a time, is extremely painful. It takes forever to bring all that data together and make sense out of it. And when it is hard to do, advertisers just do it.
Yeah, I fully agree with you, and I love the way that you framed omni-channel because it leads into kind of one of the other big challenges that we see in the market in this kind of legacy way of looking at engagement, which is the way that organizations are even structured. We're regularly meeting with marketing organizations whose budgets and business processes are all still operating in the silos that you described, which are those channels. They've broken their budgets, their business processes, their teams, all down by channel. And when we talk to the CMOs of these businesses and the team leaders themselves, they all know they need to be focused on the customer journey, but they have so much trouble getting there. How would you address that and show them the right way to bring this into their marketing teams?
I think it's all about business case. If the case is clear, you're familiar with that from where you come from. You know how many business cases you were building at Salesforce to really make the case for why people needed to adopt it. I think the same thing applies over here, which is number one, is investment in upstream media in the journey needed? The argument there is advertisers who have become stuck in lower end of the journey, which is all what is called performance end of the marketing. They're finding that once the category gets crowded and everybody goes after what they call the in-market audience that is in market to buy right now, you just don't see attractive economics anymore. And so what you decide to do is, I need to go more upstream, reach people potentially weeks or months before they have decided to think about buying something, right? So there, the first argument is built is like, okay, fine, I do need to invest money upstream in other channels and so forth. So that's the first part, a clear recognition that I don't have a choice. I must do that. But the second part then is, how do I economically justify this? Like, where are the economics? And so I think the way Mike was laying out the whole, when he showed the dashboard, I think the important thing is, okay, what percentage of the people are actually viewing my upstream message and are deciding to come to me right away and buy from me, versus how many people are waiting until they are further educated and engaged with my content and then deciding to go. When you begin to see those numbers and you see the interrelatedness between that, the case becomes much clearer. So once you have the case, you're going to figure out how to organize yourself to take advantage of that. That's really that simple. Most marketers are very economically driven. They're smart. They know where to put the money.
Yeah, and look, you're touching on probably the most interesting business challenge that I've come across in my education as I've come into this industry, which is probably an even more pervasive challenge that we hear around marketers and their hyper focus on lower funnel performance, especially when it comes to addressable media. As you know, I'm relatively new to this industry, but I was sitting in a meeting, a few months after I started, with a large, sophisticated, well-organized global bank, and the SVP of marketing said, "We know we should be doing full funnel. If we don't, those prospects will eventually go to our competition. But our hands are tied because we can't prove it. We can't prove that it works." She was telling us that she needed to be able to walk into her CFO's office and hold her head up and say, "I know that if I spend these dollars up here, I will go get the results that you showed earlier in the Babor slides." And she had no way of doing that. So when you hear this come up, what's the best argument for them to think about when spending money on upper funnel channels like branding, awareness, and engagement?
I think it's the clarity of purpose that is most important here. Because if Babor started with the question, I want to get the best ROAS, there's no place to go but go at the very performance end of the journey.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what Babor said. What they said was, I need to grow market share. That's a different question altogether. In which case, then you have to go upstream. There is no easy way for them to really grow the business under that scenario, right? I think the same thing is true with the banks. The banks, many times when they are running, their argument always is like, if I spend all this money on awareness, how is that going to improve my performance? Is it going to improve my cost per acquisition? Is it going to provide more efficiency for cost per acquisition? That's a very different question, right?
100%.
It doesn't always do that. You see, we've run into that thing with e-commerce platforms too. E-commerce platform, we say, we need to have the best ROAS on the thing and so on and so forth. And the question becomes, why do we need to do the journey then? What we switch the question by saying, do you want net new customers? Or another question, do you want to improve the basket size? Do you want people to buy more than what they typically buy? Okay, those questions absolutely can be answered through doing journey advertising. So I think it's about framing your strategic objective for marketing, and then the journey can absolutely play an amazing role.
Yeah, I love that, and that goes exactly back to proving the business case and helping people see that aha moment of where, growing the overall population really starts to have a massive impact on their business. So let's assume that we've gotten that down. Now let's talk about where these journeys go, because as we know, audiences are not confined to the open web alone. This is one that we get all the time, especially because we're sometimes categorized as a DSP.
Yeah.
So how do you connect the dots to traditional media like out of home and social into addressable?
Yeah, and I think that's a very natural place that one will gravitate to, and our audience has already gone there. I can pretty much assure you, in the sense that when you start talking a journey, the consumer can go wherever they need to go. The touch points are everywhere, whether it is inside Instagram or inside YouTube or TikTok, or it's digital out of home, or it is in store somewhere, or whatever else they're engaging with, audio, radio, things, right? We can't control that. We should pretty much assume that that's the fact. That's the way consumers behave. So then the natural question is, if Illumin is going to be a journey advertising platform, it better be in all of those places wherever they're going to go, because we don't know. Sometimes they will, over-index on one or the other aspects of the channels. So we have to go there, and we have decided, obviously, to go there. And I think Mike already referenced the digital out of home and Meta integrations that are already there and actually out there in the marketplace. I think Meta is coming next month. But what is very interesting is that all of these channels are, first of all, addressable. So that's nice. At least with digital out of home through device ID, we are able to know that somebody who actually watched this or was in the vicinity of where this particular ad was running, did they actually end up going into the store? Did they end up actually buying? All of those things can be connected and they become part of that journey, right? Or we could even connect them to, once they actually saw that outdoor, did they actually then watch a video someplace else, right? All of that can happen. When it comes to walled gardens, though, it's a whole different story. The story there is, clearly they are called walled gardens because everything that happens in there stays there. And if that's the case, there are some openings beginning to happen now, which is, one, clean rooms have already come out, dozens of them, and both walled gardens themselves offer clean rooms and so forth. The advantage of that is, if somebody's gone through a journey, has already seen the ad 3 different times in different contexts, that pool of audience, that what Mike referred to as the audience out, can actually be matched through the clean room within the Instagram or the Meta audiences and be messaged a subsequent message to continue the journey into the walled garden. That's beautiful. Then what? Well, what they do there and the measurability associated with actions they take over there can also be brought back into the same dashboard and become part of the Illumin's representation of measurement. Now that completes the loop. And so that's essentially what we intend to replicate. And if it can be done, and we make it happen here in the next few months with TikTok, YouTube, and everything else that's really in the works and in the roadmap, then Illumin is delivering on the promise of what is truly the journey advertising.
Yeah. And you and I have obviously seen those demos, and we're excited to get them out to market. So
Of course.
yeah, 100%, 100%. So I think we've got time for one more question. And you knew this one was going to come up, given my background. We're going to talk about first party data. I know you and Mike already talked on it, but marketers are confused about the deprecation of existing cookies and MAIDs and other identifiers for addressable advertising. And some are focused exclusively on collecting first-party data, which in my prior role I loved, as a guy who was all about CDPs. But what's our perspective? What's your perspective on this topic as it relates to journey advertising?
So the jury is already out on the fact that clearly we are going to have less easy access the way we had through cookies and MAIDs in the past, right?
Mm-hmm.
That isn't necessarily the end of the world. There are so many other alternatives and options. When somebody says, okay, well, then the only option we have is first party data, I think we need to think twice about that comment, which is there isn't a lot of first party data within CDPs and CRM files of advertisers. Even the best advertisers with real rationale for clear loyalty programs, highly compelling value propositions like Delta Airlines and their reward programs, and all airline and other reward programs, and hotel programs, Bonvoy from hotels, what have you, right? Beautiful, great programs. But if you look at their files, there are no more than 35, 40 million people within their records, within their files. When the addressable audience is in the hundreds of millions. So it's a small percentage of the audience that's actually with first party data. So then the question becomes, you still want to do marketing to all the people who are not in your file. How are you going to get there? And I think that requires what is the development of an identity stack, which is what Illumin has, right? Which is starts at the base with context, using probabilistic methods of creating graphs, having the universal IDs and other forms of IDs that are beginning to develop to get consumer consent through registration that happens directly through the publishers, and then complementing that with wherever you can with first party models. It truly is a stack to really build out, fill the holes, and make sure that you have a robust program to truly execute on the promise of journey advertising.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more from all of my prior life. The difficulty and challenge that comes with trying to create that ideal first party stack is just a Herculean task for IT teams and marketers to try and tackle. The way you've described it is a much better way of going about it.
Yeah, it just takes a long runway. It's not a bad thing to do. It's a good objective. It's a good vision to have. It just takes long.
Yeah.
With that was such a good discussion. I'm so glad. Those are great questions. Actually, I'm sure our audiences face similar questions in their own environment, so this would be very helpful. With that, let me transfer this back to Lindsay.
Thank you, Seraj. Thank you, Mike, and thanks, Dan. That was a great discussion, and thank you, everyone, for joining the Inside Scoop today. We hope that you join us for our next session on November 1st, where we'll be joined by Nikhil Lau, Forrester Senior Analyst, and continue to discuss journey advertising and industry trends for this year and 2024. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.